What's up guys, welcome back. It's been kind of a little while since I've done a video. Kind of got shit going on at the moment, but I'm back and I've got a very important video today. We're going to be talking about HPA tanks. So this is kind of a guide, everything you need to know about HPA tanks, anywhere from the classical steel and aluminium tanks. These are cheap as chips, all the way to this tank. So super light tank, very expensive reg. Is it worth getting that? What suits your budget? You know, there's loads of options on the market. I don't have every make, model and size available, but I do have a good spread here. And we're gonna go over them in a little bit. These are pretty much the cheapest ones you're going to be able to find. These are quite heavy, but they have to be. They're so limited to usually 3000 PSI. I have seen there are some steel and aluminium tanks that go higher to 4500 PSI, but they're generally a slightly smaller volume. So this is a 48 or a 0.8 liter tank. And yeah, these are super cheap. To be honest, to hydro it costs pretty much more than the tank. So when you hit these at 5 years and you're meant to hydro them, I generally just recycle them, take the reg off, and I keep them. I keep the reg kind of just for spare parts, and the aluminium or the steel tank, I'll just toss it. You'll get less shots out of one of these tanks, mainly because you only going to 3000 PSI maximum, and on top of it you've got 0.8 liters or 48 cubic inch for one of these. The regs themselves are also super cheap. To be honest, they're like kind of the entry level kind of regs, but it's not the end of the world. Generally they have a fixed output pressure of 800 or 850 PSI. You'll find some like the HK tanks generally sold through like somewhere like Airsoft. They have a low pressure or super low pressure on them, so they'll have about 350, and you need it for that garbage amped Airsoft reg.
How dare you!
Which is basically just an industrial reg that's got the fittings on it. Generally, if you buy these, if you buy them at a paintball store, they are almost always going to have 800, 850 PSI output pressure. Make sure that the reg that you're going to be putting on it is actually designed for that. Then the next thing, this is a very basic carbon fiber tank. This is a little bit heavier. This is a 1.1 liter, so a 68 cubic inch tank, and it's 4500 PSI. This one's also slightly heavier. It is a carbon fiber tank. Yeah, it's all right. On here is also a very basic reg. I would say pretty much they're the same like kind of quality of reg. It's not like a bad thing to just use a standard reg. They are cheap, they do work. You lose some of the features that you're going to find on the higher end regs, but it doesn't matter. Like if your budget is kind of on here, you're going to be like about 130, 140 euros for this in Europe.
Nice.
And then next we have this. This is a 0.8 liter, so a 48 cubic inch tank. You can definitely see there is a huge difference in size here. Like this is the same theoretical volume as this. 3000 PSI, 4500 PSI. So vastly more kind of shots per tank on this little one. On top of it, it's way lighter. Like this, probably like maybe half to maybe a third lighter than the aluminium tank. This one is slightly more expensive. This is a Armatech tank, so they're a company out of Czech Republic. They're pretty good. And this one you're pretty much looking at maybe about 180 euros. It does have a cheaper reg on here. I think the reg was maybe like 40-ish euros. Brother, Then we're gonna move on to the next one. This is kind of more the smaller tanks. You'll see a lot of guys playing, they'll play high kappa with one of these. This one you can put on your belt on the back, and it's actually quite nice. This is a carbon fiber version of it. They do make aluminium and steel ones. Once again, 3000 PSI. So this one's 4500 PSI, and this is a 0.25 liter, which is a 16 cubic inch. They make a slightly smaller 0.2 liter too, but they were the same price. I think they're 180 euros. This one is quite nice. Also, if you're playing with a gun, like kind of like the MTW Unleashed, you can use a tank like this because you can get the stock over it, and you've got the reg on the back of the gun. It just pops on like that.
Yeah, baby.
Then we're getting into the pretty much the premium. Just the bottle itself and the reg, so if you separate them, they are more expensive than, I would say, this tank and this tank together cost less than this tank by itself.
Why?
Why it's so expensive? Well, just the brand's slightly more premium and the bottles are super, super light. This is the HK Reg, so it's made by Ninja, and this is their Alpha Air tanks. They're pretty pricey. I think 199 euros for the tank is what I paid. And then the regulator was 180, but I got the stainless steel insert, so you're looking at another 30 euros.
Money! Sweet money!
Why the stainless steel? Well, because it's slightly better. It's much harder metal, so most regs that you're going to put on top of it, like your preset rig.
You could do so,
Your adjustable regs are aluminium, and you don't want aluminium on aluminium locking, so I prefer for my premium stuff to go for a stainless steel insert. And also what it also allows you to do is it allows you to change the shims in here, and you can change the output pressures. And then here, finally, we have this one. This is a 1.26. This is a 77 cubic inch, if I'm not mistaken. Also, Alpha Air tank's slightly more expensive, just over 200, I think maybe 220 euros just for the tank. And then the regulator is a powerhouse, so infamous paintball. This one also comes with a steel insert already, and this is I think 215 euros, I think the regulator. Looks really nice with the splash. These two are definitely the premium kind of versions.
I'll take a foot long. Fully loaded.
This is like the creme de la creme, very, very expensive. For the Armatech, you do get the super light tanks. They're also quite expensive, and they're probably a smidge lighter than these. And of course, Infamous or Powerhouse make also a tank that is also super, super light. Both of them are fantastic regs. I would say the Powerhouse is a better reg than the one from Ninja. The HK, well, it's the HK version. Looks really nice, but the Powerhouse one is the more premium. And I would say just quality and finish, fit and finish and everything. This is a much, much better reg. But you don't need to spend that much money on a reg. It's not necessary. These are premium kind of setups, so I wanted to have premium regs on them. When we talk about regs, I think some people sometimes get confused. I see it on Reddit all the time. So this is a tank reg. So you'll see here, you've got your gauge, you've got your fill nipple, and you have your two burst discs. And this screws into your bottle, so into your tank, and this will screw into your other rig. So your adjustable Airsoft rig. This is an adjustable rig. So this is what regulates the pressure from 850 or 650 or 450 down to a usable pressure that is going to work with your gun. So your HPA engine, of course, your engine doesn't want 800 psi, so you got to take this, which takes the, let's say, 3000 or 4500 psi, converts it to an output of 800 psi, and then you put your reg on here, and this will then regulate it down to 100, 120, 140, or whatever you need and whatever you're running. So these two are two very different regs. This one, adjustable. This one generally is a set output pressure. Usually when you have one of these, you will have two burst discs. If you don't know how to like kind of replace these when one bursts, don't do it yourself. Rather get a shop to do it. If your shop doesn't know how to do it, just send it off to a shop that actually does know how to do it. Because the bursters are quite important. They kind of have one job. Well, one job. They have two jobs because it's two bursters. The one is, of course, to make sure that the tank itself doesn't have any pressure issues. So this one is a 7.5K. Of course, the tank is 4,500. The tank itself was rated for far, far higher. This one will burst long before, and this is a 1.8K pressure bursters. And this one will burst if anything is wrong with the reg. Here you have a 5K, so the 5K is for the tank itself, 3000 PSI, 5K bursters. And your regulator is going to have a 1.8K usually, because generally the output pressure is going to be the same. Then, of course, fill nipple. Never, ever, ever, ever put oil on this. Never get oil in it. I've seen a couple of things happen. Pretty much it turns into a diesel motor, so a diesel engine. Super high pressure, oil in here, and the tank generally, or the regulator, will explode. So make sure that there's no oil on here, no oil in here. Don't get oil on the threading here. There is specific grease that is high pressure grease that you can use. Use that. Make sure, if you're unsure, ask your shop, well, if your shop doesn't know, ask a shop that does know. You can ask on Reddit. People are generally quite helpful. But yeah, it is a lot of pressure. So you got to be very careful with these.
Don't be stupid. Stupid?
The reason why I like regs like these, and there's also a couple of other Ninja regs that do allow it, and there are some from Power. What it does allow you to do is remove your tank so much easier. If you are removing a tank off your gun, removing it off a reg, if you're running a reg in line, if you've got an 800 PSI and you're trying to take it off, you're going to notice it's going to be a lot harder to unscrew than if you've got like 600, 650, 550, 450, 350. It's going to be a lot easier to remove your tank. Let's weigh our first tank. So this is going to be the Aluminium tank, the 3000 PSI one. So this is of course going to be the heaviest of all the tanks for obvious reasons. Let's just get it on. And we've got 1,313 grams. So like still quite a bit, but it's not the end of the world. Then we're going to weigh our basic carbon fiber tank. This is the cheapest carbon fiber tank. And this one is a 1.1 liter, so it's definitely bigger than the Aluminium tank, and it's 4,500 PSI. So you're getting all that benefit for only a little bit less weight. So it's about 40 grams here. The 1,277 grams for the basic carbon fiber tank. So still quite heavy. Next, we're gonna weigh our 48 cubic inch carbon fiber tank. This is the Armatech one. So there's a 0.8 liter tank, and it's gonna be pretty light. So let's get it on here. 743 grams, which is pretty good. That's quite a nice light tank, but it is a slightly smaller tank. Then next one is going to be our 16 cubic inch, so our 0.25 liter. This is once again a carbon fiber tank, 4,500 PSI, and this is going to be super, super light. Yeah, 398 grams, so just shy of 400 grams. That is pretty good. So we're going to get into our first premium tank. This is the 1.1 liter. This is the Alpha Air from HK with the HK regulator on it, and we're at 864 grams. So still quite a good weight. You're gonna get a little bit of extra weight with a stainless steel insert and this reg. And then finally our El Primo. This is a 77 cubic inch tank. This is the 1.26 liter. Let's get it stabilized. And you can see also pretty good, 921 grams. So you can see between the cheapest like carbon fiber tank and this one, there's quite a big difference. You've got like almost 350 grams difference on it, and that makes a big difference when you're playing all day. Of course, the 1.1 liter Alpha Air is going to be even lighter and nicer if you want to play with that. Then the next thing we're going to talk about is the labels. You'll see here there's always a label on here. You have the ISO standard. This is the one that you're going to need for Europe. Your tank needs to have that in the EU. And then here you've got for the US, you've got these markings here. You'll see also here something very important to note is you're always going to have a manufacturer date. So the birth date of the tank. This one was in January 2024. It has a 15-year life cycle. Theoretically, you can extend it with hydroring, but I generally, after 15 years, just retire a tank. It's just far better. Some tanks will give you a final. So this final date is 2039. So January 2039, this tank should be recycled. So another thing that I just want to cover, it's kind of like tank length. I didn't cover that a little bit earlier. But yeah, tank length is quite important. So let me just grab a gun out here quickly.
A few moments later.
I see a lot of speed softers running these super, super tiny tanks. It's stupid and uncomfortable. Paintball figured this out so many years ago. The early 2000s, people are still kind of using these drop forwards. Yeah, this massive kind of drop forward to get your gun and your tank really close. So you were pretty much sitting, because don't forget, you still got a mask on. You were sitting like pretty much like this. You were shooting like this. There's no stability in that. If you get up to make a move because you see there's a great like run you can make, you might be unstable, you might fall over, you might not get the shot. Basically, if you hold it and the tank kind of needs to kind of sit in here properly. So I don't actually use this tiny tank on any of my guns. I've got slightly longer gorilla arms.
Yeah, boy.
Fits perfectly. So when I'm behind my gun, I'm sitting like this. I can hold a lane, I can shoot, I'm super stable. If I want to now make a move, the gun's in my shoulder, it's not sitting over here like a fuckwit. In my shoulder, and I can just run and I can shoot. So length does matter.
Oh my.
I know that a lot of the speed tough guys are running shorter and tinier tanks. Yeah, there's a reason why pro paintball is so huge, and the guys have figured it out many years ago compared to Speedsoft, which is kind of relatively in its infancy. Get a bigger tank, get a tank that actually fits you comfortably, be more stable, be just more precise when you're running, gunning, shooting, everything like that. Even this, you'll see this tiny one is actually, because it's a similar length to these. So I would, before I could ever recommend playing with like a tinier tank or with like a 48 if you've got longer arms and you don't want a heavy tank, so you don't need the 1.1 liter, and you don't need to shoot that much because you're like a more front player. I would recommend getting maybe one of these. You saw how light this bad boy is. It's like under 400 grams, super light. You can get plenty of shots out of this. You're not going to be running that many shots anyway. You're not going to be shooting 20 mags out of this. You're not going to be shooting 20 mags in a point anyway. So this one, still super nice length. You can see works quite well. Well, there we have it. That is pretty much everything you really need to know about HPA tanks. Like most guys are going to start off with this if they don't really have the money. Like, don't be too worried about what other people kind of really think of you. If you can only afford a aluminium or steel tank because you're starting up and your budget's really low, you kind of don't really have a job because you're a kid still. Yeah, the steel tanks, aluminium tanks, they work quite well. They do what they need to do. Pressure in, pressure out. The quality of the regs, it really doesn't matter if it has a tiny fluctuation. Most of the time, not most of the time, all the time you're going to be using a adjustable reg on top of here, and that adjustable reg's job is to reduce the pressure and be consistent. So if you have a consistent reg on top of it, any tiny fluctuations from these El Cheapo tank regs, it's mitigated and it's irrelevant most of the time, to be honest. I generally will always recommend that you get a carbon fiber tank, not just because there's a bit of a weight difference, it's mainly just because you can get that 4,500 PSI.
Worth it.
That's it for this video. Give it a like, maybe subscribe to the channel. I'll be trying to push out a little bit more content in the next couple of months. This year is going to be slightly more challenging, but yeah, I've got some plans. So hopefully I saw some more gameplay videos and more reviews. And I'll check you guys in the next one.